is, you go out hunting and you have a string of bad days, or you shoot a duck or two or three, but you're looking at everybody else's bag limit days or banner days, and you start to think, well, boy, what's wrong with me? How come I'm not living up to this?
To be clear, I like to shoot ducks.
Yeah.
I do not make apologies for that. And I think we've been conditioned to say we're out here for the sunrises and the camaraderie.
Right.
We all like to see ducks and get a few.
Chasing limits every single day of the week, great. I do it when I go duck hunting. I'm after a limit. But I think what we're talking about is don't overlook all of the finer aspects of hunting. Welcome to Delta Waterfowl's The Voice of the Duck Hunter podcast. I'm your host, Joel Brice. I'm especially excited to share this episode with you because the conversation takes us into some entertaining and thought-provoking directions. Namely, we dig into what makes duck hunting meaningful, what some might call the romance of it all, in ways that are complex, powerful, and motivating. That could mean a weathered duck call passed down from a grandfather or mentor, good coffee shared with better friends, or the quiet solitude of a wintry marsh as sun glints off the frosty reeds. It has less to do with shooting ducks. Don't get me wrong, everyone likes to shoot ducks over decoys. But the romantic aspects of waterfowling, if we zero in on them, can allow us to be a lot more content when we shoot a bird or two and a lot less disappointed when we don't. But has this type of ethic fallen out of favor with duck hunters, and at what cost? Weighing in are a pair of lifelong friends and respected Pennsylvania-based voices. They are Kyle Winterstein, who as editor of Delta's membership magazine recently wrote a killer article on this very topic, and Tyler Coleman, who's quoted several times in Kyle's article, and whose Full Circle Waterfowl is a brand very much built around the romance and traditions of duck hunting. All that and more coming up. Let's get started. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
It's good to be with you, Joel, and welcome, Tyler.
Hey, thanks, guys. Good to be with you.
It's good to have you both. Tyler, we're going to get to unbox you in greater depth here in just a little bit, but I just want to make sure that the listener knows who we're talking to. So, of course, we're on the Voice of the Duck Hunter podcast, and we're talking about the subject line is, has duck hunting lost its romance? Or waterfowling lost its romance? And I don't know. I think that's kind of an open-ended question, and it's up to the listener, but we're going to put our own little take on this one. And this is a spin-off of an article that you wrote, Kyle, in the Delta Waterfowl magazine. I have it sitting next to me. Romance Lost, Waterfowling in a Connected World. So that's a pretty thought-provoking title. But Kyle, let's jump in here to the discussion. So obviously we're unpacking an article that you wrote in our magazine. Again, Romance Lost, Waterfowling in a Connected World. What was your inspiration for writing this particular article, Kyle?
The initial idea came from Bill Miller, our Hall of Fame communications director at Delta, and he pitched this to me. Has waterfowling lost its romance? And I thought, well, there's a very complex topic, but it was also one that I was immediately excited about because for me, my longevity as a waterfowler is tied more to the romantic aspects of it, the vibe of being out there, much more so than chasing limits. I guess, people find out I'm an outdoor writer and they think, oh, you must be a great duck hunter. And I'm like, do you think a sports writer has a great fastball? Like, I just like this stuff. And I'm not particularly good at it, but it's those other aspects that nobody enjoys it more than I do. That's the fact. It keeps me coming back.
Well, there's a lot there, right? And I think that, you make the point, Kyle, that the nostalgia or romance, or let's just say all the things that we love about waterfowling that don't involve bagging birds, that's what I'll be honest with you, that's what I look forward to. That's what I remember, and that's what pulls me through those days where maybe things aren't going my way, and it keeps me going. Kyle, you mentioned in this article, it starts out and it's a I would recommend that, if you're not a Delta member, uh, be a member and try to get access to this particular article. But if you are a member and you get this, it starts on page 52. But Kyle, you talk about your first duck that you harvested when you were a kid, and I bet you could tap back into some of those vivid memories and emotions right now for us. But you do make the point that it was one duck, it was close to home, and you make the point, in today's world, would you have found that day to have would you have enjoyed it as much, or would it have felt as special knowing what you know today? What do you think about that?
I think that you're getting it is, can the romance still be found? Can a kid who was my age in today's world still find that sense of adventure and wonderment that I got in my first duck hunt? And I I think that it absolutely is possible that the romantic aspects of waterfowling are still there, but I think there's some pitfalls to watch out for. I note in that introduction, what if I went home and jumped on social media after I had my one black duck that I was just so proud of, and I knew from that moment I was going to be a duck hunter forever. Like, this is it. Like, I don't remember cognitively making that decision, but it was clear. What if I'd gone home and, like, my buddies had shot, 4 mallards, or seeing all these different folks that would kind of have changed my perspective on that. Could I still have celebrated that moment for what it was, or would I have compared it to others and let it sully my duck and make it not feel quite so special? I don't know, but I think that it's something that we, when introducing a new hunter of any age, need to prepare them for.
Yeah, I think so too. I think when I was a kid and I harvested my first duck, who were the people that I shared that with? I shared it with my dad, I shared it with my brothers, my grandfather, and then I told my friends at school. But today, I guess in the social media driven world, we have Tyler, I mean, how many people follow you on Instagram or Facebook that you can share your experiences with today?
I mean, thousands of actual followers, and then it can reach how many others? The power of social media is, yeah, it's crazy for good and bad.
Yeah, I think so. It's one of those things where, as a kid, I feel like a lot of my rewards in duck hunting, my successes were my own and my small peer group. And I do think that it's quite easy to get caught up in the fast-paced, bagging a lot of birds, showing everybody how successful you were. I think it's just a lot easier now to portray to your friends and your family the type of experience you had. Maybe something that's a little bit more meaningful and not just a series of pictures. What are your thoughts on that, Kyle?
Yeah, I do think that chasing likes has inspired a lot of hero shots, and I just don't like that shot of a pile of ducks. I think there's no context to it. You don't see the work that went into it, and it gives a false impression this is the everyday, rather than the highlight reel. And I think that I do feel like there's been a domino effect where a lot of us are chasing that. And I still today, even knowing that, I can go duck hunting and get one duck, no ducks, maybe not even see a duck, and I'll still feel refreshed when I get home, and I'll make the mistake of jumping on social, and there's Tyler holding his ducks. I'm like, I'm
Oh,
singling you out to anybody.
I know.
And
Yeah,
even knowing that can happen, it kind of changes how I feel about my morning. I look back on it not feeling quite as refreshed and a lot more disappointed. There's, I think, when you look at folks with just posting their highlight reel and not sharing their empty stringer on you know many days, if you're in my group, um, I think it gives you a false sense of how much people are succeeding, and I feel like it gives you this sense of entitlement, almost like the birds almost owe you something. And you know You feel like you've been cheated instead of embracing the hunt for what it was in the here and now, not thinking about what comes next, or what should be or could be, but what's happening right now, and just enjoying it in that moment. I feel like if you aren't able to do that, you won't find the romantic aspects, because you're not looking in the right places for them.
I had a question, kind of a thought. Kyle, I think every generation is guilty of feeling like they had it tougher than the current generation, right? And we're kind of tapping into that a little bit. We're sounding like old duffers, but I think the question is: so we're painting social media as an evil, so to speak, in this arena, in this part of the story that's a bit of the villain. But Kyle, back when we were kids, and Tyler too, please feel free to jump in on this one. Outdoor life, sports afield. I don't really remember too many hunting shows, but the way I'm kind of throwing you a curveball, Kyle. The way that um, magazines would talk about hunting, is it different than the way people talk about hunting now? Like again, back when we were kids, were the articles talking about limits and limits and limits and getting, or was some of the older coverage of hunting, waterfowl hunting in particular, was it more romantic, or are we just kind of guilty of we just had it tougher?
Boy, that's a tough one, but I think I'll answer it this way. My favorite outdoor writer of all time, if you've never read any Gene Hill, go and find some old Gene Hill, particularly his stuff on birds and ducks and dogs. And the reason he's so great is he called it hill country. He's invented this romantic landscape that doesn't actually exist, that he puts us in. And I think that was there emphasis on limits? I really don't think so in the short and long form stories. I think that often online, I've heard it described this way: social media is like a sea of people, and they're all holding up a sign, and you need your sign to be the loudest. So that it gets eyeballs, and I think that has led us to like showing a bunch of ducks tends to sell, or for lack of a better term. But on the flip side of that, my kids are learning so much on social media. I would read Field and Stream and Outdoor Life religiously as a kid. I can't believe I'm a writer now, but after growing up reading those legacy publications. But my kids use YouTube and Instagram. On mine, they're not allowed to have accounts, but they follow certain people, and they are learning skills that I think are better demonstrated through that format than any print publication is capable of. So there are some positive aspects, but you just have to be wary of those pratfalls.
Tyler, how long have you had your taxidermy studio open?
So I've been doing taxidermy on my own for 5 years now. The storefront for 3 now.
Okay. In your life, so you have that disease called adult onset hunting, if I understand right. You didn't grow up
Correct.
hunting as a young child?
Correct.
So, which is really good, actually. It kind of allows me to kind of test a point here, or test a question. I don't know if I'm onto something, Kyle, or not. But again, kind of tapping into that, that the younger generation has it different than we are. I kind of wonder, Kyle, my nostalgia goes back into being a young boy. One of these memories, and I wish my dad was still alive. It'd be a fun story to talk about, but we would go, we'd travel a couple hours in the dark as a family, and we would go to this historical hunting area in Wisconsin and hunt Canada geese, and there'd be a firing line. And I remember that my dad put my older brother and I to sleep in the van, the family van, the night before, tucked us in, all clothes, everything like that. And then in the morning, he just got in the van and drove us to the hunting location. And like the steps that he would go through to make hunting easier on us, but still do it. And then I remember walking in the dark, and I remember laying on the ground looking up at the stars, hearing all the geese honking in the distance. And so to me, that's a so vivid and emotional memory, and we haven't even pulled our guns out yet, right? So to me, that's some of the nostalgia and romance. But I wonder sometimes, is nostalgia and romance, do those feelings come from your childhood? And so in an era, Tyler, where more and more hunters, like the hand-me-down tradition of hunting is less common. Parents handing hunting down to their children. So where does your sense of nostalgia or romance with waterfowl hunting come from, Tyler? Since it didn't come from your childhood.
So I still started at 12
Oh, that's
with
okay.
Nick and his family. So I still was a child. I just wasn't brought up, even 4 or 5 years old. I wasn't like, it's not like my dad walked in with some ducks and we have a duck dog in the house or anything. It was like at 12 years old, I was introduced, and from 12 on, I was hooked. And then that family, the Barrys, they really just took me under their wing. I can say though, touching on that, the meadow and the place I talked about as kids and where we cut our teeth on waterfowl, and extremely blessed as kids, we're only realizing it now. That place, it's a pig farm and a cow farm. It has a very distinct odor when you get there. And yet every morning when we get there, it is like we're home. No matter where we go, and I've been to Alaska and Maine, when we go to this meadow, we might not shoot a duck, and just being there with your best friends, you've gone through life with, being down there is, that's where the nostalgia starts. But I think as we grew up, and I'll say, I didn't grow up with social media. I was kind of more the internet, so we had duck hunting chat and like hunting PA for Pennsylvania. And these were forums that, quite frankly, I learned a lot on. And I also learned like how to be, well, respectful and etiquette, because the guys on there were ruthless. They'd correct you. So you ask, oh, how do we find a duck to hunt in Pennsylvania? They're going to say, well, you go out and scout. And it's like, okay, yeah, you realize you don't go out and just internet scout. You got to like do the work. And there would be some people that take you under your wing. And I've made some lifelong friends from the forums and now from Facebook and social media as well. But there is like some responsibility with, social media and how we portray things and bring people up too. Because there is, I think, a maturation process where we go from wanting to kill and wanting to shoot piles to, where's that pivot? Where's that turn into a little more respect of, the things in the past, carving too, things like this that are all dying arts and dying parts in the waterfowl space. Yet the thing that's growing is people wanting to kill piles. That's not sustainable for just waterfowl hunting in general, in my opinion.
I remember, maybe I learned this in hunter education, but I certainly think I learned about it in college. But there's roughly said there's 5 stages that hunters go through. And on the earliest of stages, it's you don't know how to hunt, you don't have the skills, you're just trying to figure things out. And then you progress into where you're really proficient. And it's normal for people to go through the limit phase. Like, I want to harvest a lot of ducks. That's totally normal. But then a typical hunter starts to then continue down that spectrum of, maybe you're trying to find methods that are more challenging. Maybe it's a single shot, a double barrel, a 20 gauge. Maybe it's hand carved decoys. Maybe it's some of those things. All the way on the far end of the spectrum is you grab a camera potentially instead of a shotgun. So it does feel like, in the stages of a hunter, Kyle, it does kind of feel like there's this sweet spot where people can naturally become more nostalgic. Because if nostalgia is thinking of a time in the past, and typically in the time of the past it was a little harder to do something, it seems like that stage 3, 4 of a hunter would be really nostalgic time period. That was just a random comment and just a random wandering. I don't know if you had if that made you think of anything, Kyle. But the one thing that I did want to ask is, hunter expectations are through the roof. And the last podcast, and if you didn't get to watch the last podcast, I'd encourage everybody to go back and watch that one or listen to that one. But in today's world where information is everywhere, it's really easy to get your hands on it. Duck hunters, if you follow, again, on social media, follow Delta, follow Ducks Unlimited. You're going to see hunting season forecast. You're going to see breeding season outlooks. I don't remember how I got those types of information as a kid. I don't think I did. But I got my expectations from my dad. I did. You know, the types of hunting that he had, good and bad, those were my expectations. I wonder in today's world, Kyle, do you think people are getting their expectations from external sources, or are they getting it from those hand-me-down experiences?
Boy, that's a tough one for me to say. I know that when I wrote this the feature story in the spring issue, I was very careful not to insult anyone who is in simply a better place, a better location for waterfowling than I am. When I say like, oh, a duck in each hand, I'm satisfied. You know, I didn't want to imply, well, you should be happy with that too. It'd be like somebody in a marginal elk unit telling somebody in, you know, a prime elk unit, why can't you be happy with a 275? Why are you after the 350? It's not fair. But I think when you are somewhere where it is ingrained in the culture, um, rightfully so, you have an expectation of um, a certain expectation of success. I know I personally am able to um, go on assignment to places that have, you know, a rich tradition of waterfowling where you're probably going to shoot more, and it doesn't ruin Pennsylvania for me. I can come back here, and if I shoot one duck, it feels like four somewhere else. Um, so it's it's tough for me to say because I do know that it's clear expectations and the reality of what people are experiencing doesn't seem to align. Um, yeah, and you know, things on social media tend to snowball. When there's perspectives that align, people tend to find each other, and it can grow. But yeah.
We probably should have brought this up earlier in the podcast, Kyle, and that's on me. But this whole conversation, and good for you to point it out, this isn't about judgment. It's okay to go after a limit of ducks every single time. That is so okay. The conversation is more out of concern. Wouldn't you agree, Tyler? A concern for the future of hunting?
Yeah, I think something on that is actually, I mean, right on par with what we're trying to do with Full Circle. It's okay. Kyle sees the success we have at times, but we also don't show every day's piles. That's a pile. Yes, it might be a sign of success. It's a sign you did your homework. You found the birds and things came together. I love shooting a pile, so yeah, I don't judge people for that. I think the pivot needs to be, and it really hit us in Pennsylvania with the one bird Canada goose limit, and I think it was a 15-day season we had, and then a two mallard, shortened season. That was tough. You saw a lot of people fall off hunting, and it was concerning because, I mean, put it this way, it was great. We had opportunity, but it was concerning because you saw a lot of hunters fall off. Well, the thing for me was, and why we started Full Circle Waterfowl then, is what makes your hunt come full circle. It's if you're going out and you're only able to shoot two birds, that's our pile is two mallards, because we're not shooting gadwall and widgeon. Like, is it the bird, is it the bird dog retrieving that one bird or two birds? Is it hunting over one mallard block that you carved? I think it's finding those things that make your hunt come full circle without having to focus on a pile. But when you get a pile, you can be happy and you can show it, but you gotta find those nuances that are like, okay, this was so cool. Like I said, going out and smelling pig manure and not shooting a bird, I'm still content. It's being out there with my buddies at that point. But I'm also glad when my buddies and I can shoot a pile in that same spot. It's not, we're not against that. It's just finding that thing to draw you in without having to kill. It's that.
To be clear, I like to shoot ducks. I do not make apologies for that. And I think we've been conditioned to say we're out here for the sunrises and the camaraderie.
Right.
We all like to see ducks and get a few. But I think that if that is the goal, you're setting yourself up for failure, because I don't think it can be replicated time and again. And I think you're setting yourself up for disappointment and missing some of those aspects that can still make it enjoyable. I think that it's, when we talk about R3, our Hunter 3 programs, I think that the retainment are, if you are just focused on shooting limits of ducks, I don't know how you stay as a hunter long term. It's to me, that's not a sustainable mindset perspective.
Well, I agree. I agree. It's I do think that in some ways, the big hunts, where you did harvest a limit, or you had tons of opportunities, whether you were successful or not, I think those can pull you through the dark times, of maybe a week stretch or several hunts, or maybe you tried to get permission and you were rejected from permission and you just struggled. That I think those successes can get you through. But yeah, we are absolutely talking about if that's the only measuring stick. I agree with you, Kyle. You're kind of, yeah, you're destined to fall out of it or not live up to those expectations. That's one of the things, Kyle, that I know you've participated. You've been at least to a Delta University hunting program hunt or mentored hunt. Tyler, in your world, have you participated in any Delta Hunter recruitment events?
Yeah, so I was chairman of the State College or Central PA chapter, and more recently the Swatara Creek chapter. We helped do the Delta University hunt out at Middle Creek. It was really rewarding to see, a lot of those students from the start to the end, just their perspective shift and knowing they're making policy decisions and stuff. It was very cool to see.
Good.
Very cool program too.
Yeah, appreciate that help. Anytime, we'll take more.
Yeah.
Right? The reason I bring that up is one of the things that's central to our hunter recruitment programs is that, what we tell people and what our R3 coordinators do, our program coordinators, they're not looking for the hunt of a lifetime when they introduce some new hunters to waterfowl hunting. What we're looking for is more of a controlled environment. We're trying to avoid, there are some less than flattering sides of duck hunting. I've personally never seen it, but I've heard of plenty boat ramp fist fights and people competing for spots, and maybe the not so glamorous side of duck hunting. So we do try to insulate a new hunter from something like that. But what we're not trying to show them 5,000 mallards in their face. We're not trying to show them the green timber hunt of a lifetime. And the thought there is we don't want to create false expectations, right? It's a bit of a bait and switch. If you pull someone in to hunting with that hunt that everybody dreams of, can the rest of their hunting career live up to the expectations that we set for them? So what we try to find is, I don't know if middle of the road is the right way to say it, but yeah, we want them to see some birds. We want them to have opportunities to bag. A limit is definitely not our measuring stick. It absolutely happens from time to time, but more often than not, on our mentored hunts, somebody didn't get a bird at all. They're like me as a kid, where I shot 2 boxes of shells and didn't get anything, right? And so it is really part of that theory. And I think kind of in a big game world, my first buck that I ever shot was a spike whitetail. And, you do hear of somebody shooting this giant 200-inch whitetail. And so they shot the deer that they didn't even dream of because they perhaps didn't know it existed, right? And so everything after that is really going to it's going to be tough to live up to that. And so expectations are big. And so we do work that straight into the programming. Is that something that you've seen, Kyle, when you were at a Delta event?
Yeah, I think so. And the other thing is, we feel such pressure as mentors to get people ducks, when I've seen smiles that are just as big when they see ducks, when a newcomer sees ducks or sees them decoy, or it doesn't have to be mallards or pintails. The most recent hunt I was on. I think it was a hen-hooded merganser and a bufflehead were shot, and these kids were so elated. Like, it was really like I had goosebumps just watching it because it reminded me of my first experience and what pulled me in. But and they did get ducks, but you know we didn't show them this slam dunk hunt to where they're going to go home and think, well, that's duck hunting. um, you know, and the reality is far less far less exciting, I guess. Um,
On the last podcast, we did talk about expectation management, social media, showing, and I did reference a conversation that I've had with my kids on a number of occasions, and honestly, I experienced it myself. I remember 2 little kids, a traveling job, and I got out hunting very little, at least for my standards. And I remember looking across social media, and everybody's out hunting, and everybody's on vacation, and everybody's doing all this stuff. So it felt, right? And that's not the reality. It's not. People are cherry picking the best moments of their life, and if you have, a feed, on Instagram or Facebook, literally what you're going to see is a collection of everybody's great moments, but that might be a 0.5% of their life, but you're seeing it all at once. And so I think that's the concern with social media is, you go out hunting and you have a string of bad days, or you shoot a duck or 2 or 3, but you're looking at everybody else's bag limit days or banner days, and you start to think, well, boy, what's wrong with me? How come I'm not living up to this? And then there's television. Outdoor television does the same thing, which is awesome. It's fun and it's entertaining. And I made the point how awesome that in today's world we can watch duck hunting. We can learn about duck hunting 365 days a year. So that's where, maybe some of today's expectations come from. But Kyle, I think we too quickly bash might be the word. We're not talking about social media in a positive light, but can social media, what positive role can social media play in waterfowl hunting, Kyle?
Yeah, as long as I avoid the negatives we talked about, I enjoy social media. I've met some really great duck hunters, some that I've met in person, some that I just keep in touch with on social. I personally have learned a lot. Some of the photography is outstanding, whether it's during the hunt or live ducks. I watch a lot of taxidermists. Tyler's putting out some neat stuff. Some of the video editing is just like mind-blowingly good. There is sort of that entertainment factor, and yes, like a shared sense of community. And I think if you are of a if you're a duck hunter, period, it gives you a sense of belonging, and being included in the group. But also, if you are someone who doesn't look like me, if you're female or a person of color, like those duck hunters are on social media. You can and it you can see yourself among duck hunters in different groups on social media. So I think there's some really positive aspects to it.
What do you think, Tyler? What positive role does social media play in your business, in your life, in your personal hunting?
So for business, it's essential. That's why I feel like there is a responsibility, and I try to paint the picture of what makes your hunt come full circle, the simplicities, but again, show some piles here and there, the successes. But I mean, Kyle and I met through social media. I read a magazine in my Bio 110 class, and at the end it said, Kyle Winterstein loves nothing more than duck hunting, Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. And I'm like, there's no way he hunts that if I'm hunting all over here. So I reached out to him on social media, and that's how we met. So Kyle's one of my best friends now, and had it not been for Facebook and just, searching him up and creeping a little bit, I found him, and, we're best friends now. So I think it plays a very important role. It closes the gap from, there's people in California I have plans to hunt with this year, and I've yet to meet in person, but, I feel like we know them. I think it does help bring a community together, but it can also, there's responsibilities with that.
Okay.
And how could I have overlooked that you slid into my DMs? Is how we met, because you read an article, it might have been in Delta's magazine while I
It
was
was.
freelancing. And I got that and I thought, God, these college kids, what do they know about duck hunting? And then I looked at some of your photos online and I'm like, they know a lot more than I do. They're killing a lot more ducks than I am. I think I'm going to reach out to this Tyler guy. So.
It was a blessing.
That's great. That's great. Do you guys have any people in your life? I'm really struggling to find again what we called mistakenly labeled you as an adult onset hunter. Tyler, 12 years old, is not an adult, but do you guys have adults in your life who started hunting as an adult and feel some of the nostalgic or romantic feelings towards duck hunting?
I can say personally, I've had some people come into the store or even through like just R3 hunts that we've done personally that we try to, we flip decoys, buy, sell decoys, old ones, things like that. I like to give one here and there to people as kind of a connection to the past. Give them a decoy, tell them who it's made by, explain the history and say, hey, there's many more decoys like this. This is why the carvers were carving decoys back then, because they didn't necessarily have the means to buy them or there weren't decoys available. It helps them appreciate where we're at now, but it also helps, I think, in a way, connect them to the past. And I've had a lot of people come back into the store just for that aspect, trying to learn more. And I don't know all of it, but it's fun looking up the history and working on things together that way.
I think it depends who they start hunting with. I think that the ones who stick with hunting are the ones who find those romantic aspects as quickly as possible. But I think that it sets the tone when you hunt with someone who appreciates that side of hunting. I can speak to when I was, we'll go back to my first duck hunt. My dad liked to be out there early, pitch black. Where he took pride in being the first one on the river because we could just watch the sun come up and the river come alive. So that immediately was a tone setter for me. And I thought, he showed me what he liked about duck hunting that had nothing to do with shooting ducks. And the fact that I'd hunted some deer beforehand and like a good day in deer hunting is like you saw one. So that was my kind of expectation going in. So then when we did see ducks, it was very exciting. But I do feel like it just it speaks to the importance of proper mentorship.
Yeah, I think so. I am stuck with this feeling again and it's a very personal and individual feeling and thought about nostalgia and romance, right? So the challenge here, guys, is are our thoughts and are our feelings representative of others in the hunting community? And I can't escape this thought that childhood memories are they're so much more powerful. And I heard stories and I had these experiences, and I remember being just a terrible hunter. I was terrible. At my first couple of years, it took me, I don't even think I shot a duck my very first year, but I shot at a ton of ducks. And then I got good at it, but I remember the cold feet, and I remember the long walks, and I remember the stars, and I remember watching my dad have success and just a man right in front of me, larger than life. And to me, that's where the nostalgia comes from. The mismatched clothing, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's nostalgia to me. And I remember that, and I pass that on. I do think that taking kids hunting, family members taking kids hunting, close friends taking kids hunting, I think that, to me, I just can't help escape that that's some of the most powerful, romantic or nostalgic memories of hunting are developed as a child. And I kind of want to go off on this little tangent in that I took both of my kids hunting for the first time when they were 3. So now one of them's 18, one is 15. And I had this goal. It was my stated goal. I want my kids to never remember a time in their life where they didn't hunt. And so they don't remember going at age 3. But if you ask them, they'll never remember a time where they didn't go hunting. And I have other friends who will say they didn't take their kids out till they were 13, 14, 15 because they wanted them to have this physical stature to go out and hunt. And I said, that's really risky, because by the time they're 12, 13, 14, 15, in today's world, there's so many other items competing for their time, right? So there's sports and computers and phones and all the other stuff. And so my goal was, again, take them where they would never be able to remember a time where they didn't hunt, but then also get them young and get them early. But I'm kind of wondering again, are those some of the most powerful, romanticized memories from childhood? Not to say you can't get those things as an adult, but I think as an adult, we have much more rational minds and much more rational thinking. And so I think, when you're a 3-foot tall person in the cattails, it has to be much more, I don't know, again, romanticized. We keep going back to that. But as a 6-foot tall person looking across the cattails, I just don't know that those two things can compare as much. Am I saying anything that's ringing in your minds?
I know I can't speak to the psychology of all of it, but I know there is this powerful recollection of nostalgia from your childhood. Tyler mentioned the smell at the pig farm, which is that's an interesting one. But to this day, if I smell the exhaust from a 2-stroke engine, I'm immediately that kid in a boat on this adventure in the Susquehanna. And I do think it has something to do with your stature and lack of knowledge about the natural world around you that creates I mean the Susquehanna River may as well have been an ocean to me at that age. And I think anytime there's a sense of danger, whether it's real or perceived, kind of adds to it as well. But I don't know that there's still that sense of adventure as an adult as I felt when I was young. Maybe I'm still chasing that in a way through different styles of hunting and what I appreciate. But I've found avenues that have a similar vibe. But I think you might be onto something, Joel. I don't know that it will ever have the same feel for me. I'm just glad it happened during the years it did. I'm grateful to my dad for that.
Well, I have to go into that article, Kyle. And this was not a planned tangent, but this is right out of your article. I'm going to look down here. We were a mere couple miles from our sleepy little town, but in my imagination, no, make that my core, I was in an uncharted expanse hunting the fabled wild duck said to appear every winter through some combination of magic and miracle from a far-flung territory known to the elders as Canada. And might be onto something. Again, those childhood memories are I don't know, legend, maybe, is the word that I want to come up with, accentuated. But who knows? But I do think that, adults can have very powerful feelings. They can develop the same romance, maybe just from a different angle and different perspective. But the good news is an adult onset hunter can pass that tradition and those early experiences onto their children, right? So I don't think it really matters, but what matters is that you find your romance, find your nostalgia, and you pass it on for others to create that same opportunity.
To that point, I love learning about ducks because I love ducks. I don't know the biology and the ecology inside and out like either of you, but having a certain knowledge does kind of give you a peek behind the curtain, so to speak. Like there's I don't know if it maybe it weakens a little bit of the magic knowing how it all works. But I do think there's times when I like to sort of suspend disbelief and just marvel that these mallards over my decoys came from somewhere in Canada, and here they are of all places. Can you believe it? And just I try to carry the perspective I might have had as a kid into my adult hunts, and sometimes that little bit of mental gymnastics works for me.
Yeah, I suppose so. I suppose so. Tyler, I'm going to ask this question to you. So, if we talk about social media, outdoor TV, hunting catalogs, if it's, just limits of ducks in your face, just accomplishment type information as opposed to the experiential aspects of hunting, what can the hunting world do to maybe kind of balance this out a little bit? What do you think?
Ooh, I that's a good one. I mean, I do think just focusing on some of the simplicities of it, like I do think part of the nostalgia to me now is the simplicity of it then as a kid. So I think, yeah, it's again important to do the homework and put in the work and do things right. But I do think sometimes it's okay to just realize, like, I'm gonna wing it this morning on a creek and try and shoot a few birds, and I'm gonna enjoy that hunt as well. It's not, and it's coming from a perspective from Pennsylvania where we really are not killing piles often. So I'm telling you that it's like, yeah, don't show us your piles because it's almost like it's rubbing it into us. No, I just think there are some ways, and I think if we think simpler at times, it will help, you know, as far as sustainability and even recruiting and stuff like that. I just think, how do you recruit people if you tell them all the time that the only way you're measuring success is in piles? It's not, yeah, hard to recruit that way, I think, long term.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good stuff. Kyle, as a member of the outdoor media, what do you feel your responsibility is for the future of hunting?
We could have a whole podcast on that, but I think that it is portraying hunting in its proper context, portraying that there's this paradox in duck hunting because I love ducks and I shoot them, and I think exploring that that just weird dichotomy there is important. Portraying hunting in a positive light. I'm not obsessed with this idea that, well, you're giving ammunition to the anti-hunters with this or that. They hate hunting, period. There's nothing that we're going to do that's going to make them hate it any more than they already do. So I don't think that we should shy away from discussing hunting in a tasteful manner and portraying hunting, and there's nothing to hide or apologize for. But I do think that in the outdoor media, we can kind of set an example, be the standard bearers of what it looks like to portray hunting and hunter-funded conservation in a positive, truthful manner, and that can specifically can extend to. I think you can show that you shot a lot of ducks. I also think there's a way to do it that's more respectful to the birds. I think you can have a nice tight shot of some beautiful aspect like a mallard speculum, or the side of that beautiful widgeon's head behind you there, Tyler, and there's some other, you can kind of feel that there's other ducks in the background rather than them stacked.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
there's definitely a lot of stuff out there, and I think from a social media standpoint, internally, Kyle, we talk a lot about photo. And if I put a label on it, kind of a photo style guide, and so one of the things is a person should never pose with more ducks than they were legally allowed to harvest. So if you hunted with four of your friends and you had 4 daily bags, don't go posing with everybody's ducks all by yourself. That kind of sets one, it could suggest that you're breaking the law, if someone was just looking at it without context. But again, it does put the emphasis on volume, right? Little things like hold the duck, nicely. Don't grab it by the neck so it looks like you're choking. It just, showing some respect. And I don't know if we've just fallen off the romance and nostalgia wagon here, and now we're just getting preachy, so I'll be careful. But I think what we're just kind of talking about is chasing limits every single day of the week. great. I do it when I go duck hunting. I'm after a limit. But I think what we're talking about is don't overlook all of the finer aspects of hunting, all the things that you take home with you, the friendships, the family, yes, the sunrises, the sunsets. I mean, I'll tell you what, I probably, of all the sunrises that I've seen, boy, I'd say very few of them did I just wake up just so I could see the sunrise. But going out there hunting, whether it's big game or waterfowl, man, the experiences that we've all had simply because of that license and gun in hand. And don't forget all of those things, because those are what you'll take with you when it's all over with. Those are the stories. That's the kinship. And at the end of the day, through a series of bad duck seasons, those are the things that will keep you buying a license and supporting the North American model, supporting conservation. So I think that's really what we're getting at, is just focus on, while you're chasing the limit, while you harvested a limit, just focus on those other things and share those, because those are the emotions that will survive the test of time.
Totally agree. I think as you learn what romantic aspects inspire you as a hunter, and you learn what aspects of our modern society are detrimental to you finding and appreciating them, that helps you zero in. But ultimately, I mentioned Gene Hill. There's very few ducks being shot in his stories, and I want to feel when I'm hunting the way I feel when I look at a Dave Moss or a Terry Redland print, of just this beautiful scene that makes all of us feel a certain way when we look at these, whether it's canvasbacks on big water in the sunset and the picture behind me, or what have you. There's a certain vibe to it. It's hard to really point to exactly what the romance of waterfowling is. To me, it's kind of like love. Like, we know what it is, but good luck describing it. But it is that sort of just nice feeling that you get, this connection to nature and the experience of being a participant in it, that just drive me, that keep me coming back, that are why I love it as much now as when I was 12.
Well, the nice thing about this is, we're focused on waterfowl through this conversation, but this whole concept applies to turkey hunting, to deer hunting, to upland hunting, to anything. So I guess with that, I think you guys did a fantastic job helping us unpack this topic. As a wrap up, Kyle, again, I mentioned it in the front end, but I'm going to let you in the back end. Where can people find the article that we're talking about here?
People can find the article in the spring issue of Delta Waterfowl. It's available in print and digital. As my dog coughs, sorry. It's available only through a Delta Waterfowl membership. This is one that we will eventually offer as a bonus at deltawaterfowl.org. And if you are not a member of Delta Waterfowl, getting our 5 issues a year of our award-winning publication that I think you'll really enjoy, and that delves into some of the romantic aspects of waterfowling, I'd encourage you to head over today and join us.
Okay. And then other writings, I'm sure we have a handful of your articles are probably on our website, but you're well represented in each and every issue of the magazine. So that's a great way to learn more about Kyle and read some of his writing. Tyler, for you, tell us where people can find both your taxidermy shop and your Full Circle Waterfowl store.
So the best place is through social media: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, at Full Circle Waterfowl. We post our hours and stuff on there, and or set up appointments. So if you're ever in the area and would just like to pop in, shoot us a message and we'll be accommodating. But that's the best place to find us.
I did look at your website before we got on here. So love the gear, but beautiful taxidermy work. Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. And there's a lot more in the store. It's hard to put the store inventory online and keep up with that. So most everything's in the store. We try to just show you a little glimpse of what we offer online.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. I guess with that, We're going to also thank the listener. Thank you for following us, for being a member, and supporting the work that we do on behalf of ducks and duck hunting. With that, gentlemen, we'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Thanks all. It's good to be with you.
All right.
Take
See
care.
ya.